Welcome back to Science Modernizers. Welcome back to this video. Today we are going to talk about the topic bearings, and the lesson will be on how to draw bearings. Okay, so let's get the lesson objectives. So at the end of this lesson, you, the students following, should be able to, number one, define a bearing. Number two, write down a bearing from a point using the correct notation. The next will be draw a bearing from a point, and the specific aim of the video will be to draw bearings which are less than 180 degrees. So then, what is a bearing? So bearings are simply angles measured clockwise from the north. So the north or the north line. So it is a sort of a line which we draw from the points which we are about to measure our bearings. So to measure the bearings, we must first know which direction is the north. So once the north direction is known, then it's easy for us to get our bearings by measuring the angle clockwise. So we have to note that all bearings need to be given in three figures. So if the angle measured is less than 100 degrees, then we must write three figure bearings starting with 0. For example, if we want to write maybe a bearing which measures 45 degrees, then rather than writing 45 degrees alone, we have to emphasize on the fact that it should be 3 lettered, so that should be 045 degrees. So that is how we write bearings. But when it is already 3 digits, for example 135 degrees, it's okay. So needless to add 0 is not necessary. But when you measure and you have 2 digits, 35, 40, always add a 0 in front. Okay, so let's take an example on a bearing. Let's take an example and try to represent the bearing, then we see some respective activities on how to draw bearings. So to begin with, we are going to choose a given point. Let's call that point P. So P is our point of reference. It means that's where we are going to measure our bearings from. Now we would like to measure the bearing of A from P, and we also like to measure the bearing of B from P. So we are going to suppose that these 2 points A and B, or we want to get the bearings of A and B from the point P. So following the instructions or the steps here, the first thing we have to do is that to measure the bearing, we first need to know the north direction. So the north direction will be to respect to our fixed point, so that's P. So we are going to draw a north line. So we are going to call that line a north line N. Now with the north line N, we can now measure our bearings in a clockwise direction from the point. If we want that of A, we are going to measure the bearing of A from P. It is a given angle from the clockwise direction. So let's see what it gives. So you see, if we link from P to A, this clockwise angle is what we call the bearing from A to P. Now in this, let's give it a value. Let's call it 045 degrees. So in the same way, if we have to measure the bearing of B from P, what we have to do is we simply have to link the line drawing from P going up to B. Then we measure the angle from the north line. So that is it in blue line. And then let's give it, for example, a value 260 degrees. So that is how bearings have been drawn, and that is how they are being represented. So let's take some basic steps on how to draw bearings which are all less than 180 degrees. So we are going to start. The first point is we locate the point you are drawing the bearing, and then when the point is located, you draw your north line. The next is using a protractor, you place the 0 mark of the scale on the north line and measure the required angle clockwise. Always take note, clockwise. Then you mark on your page the angle needed. Then you draw a line from the start point in the direction of the bearing. So let's get an activity. So we are going to draw the following bearings: A 050 degrees, B 030 degrees, C D, C 045, D 060, E 090. Then we have F and G. Now in this video we are going to draw the first, that's 050, 090 and 135 or 150. So among the two we are going to draw one of them, then you can attempt the rest as exercises. Okay, so let's begin with the first. Now we want to draw the bearing 050 degrees, that's A. So we are going to suppose a starting point. Let's call the starting point A. So A will be our reference point, like in the previous activity where we saw our reference point was P. So in this case we are calling that point A. So let's keep our A. Now based on the steps which are on the screen, you see the first step says we should locate the point you are drawing the bearing and which we are drawing the bearing from and draw a north line. So let's draw a north line from A. So standing on A, we draw a north line. So we are going to call that a north line N. The next is using a protractor, place the zero mark of the protractor on the north line and measure the required angle. Remember, our required angle is 50 degrees. It's 50 degrees. So we are going to place our protractor. You see that our line is lost on the north line. So you place it well in such a way that their zero mark should be on your north line. Then we measure 50 degrees. So we should measure together. We have 10. We have 0. Sorry, 0, 10, 20, 30, 40, 50. So it means this is our point of interest. So let's mark it. That's our point of interest. Then you carefully remove your protractor and we link the point from A to our point. So this bearing, let's say this is the bearing. If we call this point B, this angle is 050 degrees. So 050 degrees is the bearing of B from A. So that's it. Let's go to the next 090. Okay, so we start again with the first reference point A. We draw our north line. The next is we bring in our protractor and we measure 90 degrees. So let's count it together. So this is a zero mark from the north line. We are counting in the clockwise sense, that's in the direction of the clock. So here we have 0, 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90. So it means our point is somewhere there where we have the 90 degree mark. So with that, we carefully remove our protractor and then we link from A to the point P, and so all this angle is 090 degrees. So 090 degrees represents, if we call this point P, that is the bearing, or we can say 090 degrees is the bearing of B from A. That's it. Now let's do one which is above 90. So let's do the next case. So we'll take F, which is 135 degrees. So we do the same thing. We start with the reference point A. We draw our north line. Then we use our protractor to measure 135 degrees. So you measure, we already measured somewhere to 90. So you see this 100, 110, 120, 130. Now you realize that in between the gaps we have small subdivisions. So all those divisions represent 1 degree each. So if this is 130, this is 131, 132, 133, 134, 135. So this is our point of interest. So we are going to mark that point. 135 is this point, sorry, it should be this point rather. So based on what we have, it's 150. So we have done 150. So let's measure the 150. So that's 140, 150. Okay, so then as assignment you are going to do the 135 degrees. Now when the point is marked, we remove our protractor and then we link. So the measure of this angle is 150 degrees. So if we call this point, let's call it maybe C now, it means that 150 degrees is the bearing of C from A, and that's it. So attempt the other exercises, and in terms of any problem you can drop your questions in the comment section. And this will bring us to the very end of this video. In the next lesson we are going to see how to measure bearings greater than or equal to 180 degrees. So stay tuned. Thanks for watching. Do not forget to like, share and subscribe. See you in the next video.